Action!
Action. Yeah, I got to get the little. Okay, here we go. Take one, and only take one. Okay. Well, thank you, friends, for tuning in. This meeting here, this conversation, is really special to me because the gentleman who is with me here today on the Zoom meeting is somebody who's had a very, very significant influence on me musically, and as I get to know him personally as well. So I'm speaking of one of my heroes, Mr. Gary Husband. Thank you, Gary. Thanks for joining me again here and talking.
Carl, I'm more than I could say grateful for your kind words and amazing comments there. You're too kind. But it's great we did this, and thanks for reaching out, and I'm happy to be here.
Oh, listen, it's my is my pleasure.
And mine, and mine, absolutely.
Well, thank you. No, it's interesting. So I've been listening to you since I figured it out over the weekend. I figured it out. I had heard you prior to this, but I didn't know it was you. But I knew I was listening to you in 1986. That's the year I saw Allan Holdsworth for this first time. And I'll just say this. Here's my story. I went to see Chick Corea, and that was the intention. Because Dave Weckl was touring, and I'd never seen Dave, and he was a little bit newer on the scene at the time, right? And I'd heard him, and I'm like, man, I got to see this guy. So there's this opening act. I'd never heard of this guy. And I'm like, well, we got to get through the opening act. I sure hope they're good, right? So I'm there with like my friend Joe and Dave and Frank. I think Frank Newbert was there. We're sitting up in the balcony, beautiful seats, and then out comes Allan Holdsworth, Jimmy Johnson, and Chad. And for 70 minutes, my head was spinning, and it was the most beautiful music I'd ever heard in my life, and also as a turning point for me where I never looked back, and I always look forward differently now because in 34 years later, well, actually what happened, so I leave on the intermission, I go out, and it's like a half an hour break, and I'm telling the guys, I'm like, geez, I think I'm going to go home. I said, what are you talking about? I said, I don't want those sounds to leave my head. I've never heard anything so amazing and beautiful. They said, that's why they make CDs. Get back in here. So I went in, and Chick's band was great, but I wasn't in the right mindset to see them. I saw them later on a few times, and I was in a better mindset. But anyways, the next day I go out, I buy IOU, Metal Fatigue, and a Tavakron. Boom.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Gary Husband enters the picture, and that's where you begin for me, officially knowing that it's you. And so I just want to thank you for all that because, man, it's what an amazing, well, in my eyes, what an amazing career you seem to have had. It's been an
interesting hopefully it's not over. but yeah, it's been pretty amazing.
So tell me, how did, if you don't mind, I know we were talking about maybe touching a little bit on the idea of success, and we can mention that as we go through. What I'm really wanting people to know about is you, Gary Husband, because you're one of the things I really like a lot, and I'm talking an awful lot because I'm excited here, but like the Tony Williams of the world, the Miles Davis, the Train, the Allan Holdsworths for sure. The Roy Haynes, when you hear them, if you listen to them, it's them, and you don't need to look at the personnel on the record label. So when I get a Tavakron, oh, that's Gary Husband on that song. I know it is because you have this unique voice, which I think we all possess to some degree. But the thing is you've so much separated yourself. I mean, I think that's amazing, and I love you're a heavyweight, man.
It's really so kind of you to say that. I think we're the consequence and accumulation of everything we go through, I think. And but most of all, corresponding to the little flame and the little voice inside, which is really, it really called me, you know, into music at a very young age. So I was just really just following a line. It was like somebody going, "Come, it's all waiting for you."
Yeah.
You know, step this way and start your journey, which I did relentlessly and with vigor and with passion, just to, in order to try to start making steps to what I considered, you know, I wouldn't be so arrogant to say doing what came naturally, because to a certain extent it did, but and it was the beginning of mountains and mountains of work, but it was a natural calling. That much I can say, and I guess when you have the drive, it can, some, you know, I guess in its best sense can link to some kind of facility that you feel, you know, and if you don't have the facility, you start to develop it, because you begin to realize that you need music like food. And this is what it was like for me. So I just got on with it. And you were talking about character and things. I do happen to believe that we're all in possession of it. The one that's really, I mean, I believe if you were to listen to recordings of yourself, Carl, for instance, to go back and hear very early recordings or things that you've got from very early on and play something later, I guarantee you there's a pretty good correlation between the sound you make, the character of your playing, and whatever else. Despite, of course, your development and everything you progress and go on to do, but I think there's a big link to what we have essentially in our hands from the very beginning. I mean, I know it because I've wanted to change it passionately for a lot. You know, I don't want to have this sound, and then it, you know, as time went by, I realized there was very little we could do about that. But equally, I realized that it's actually a very beautiful thing to have something recognizable, and we don't have to be innovators. I certainly didn't concentrate on trying to innovate much, just tried to find what was at the essence of what was calling me to create. That's all, and try to get nearer to doing that and bringing that about with more clarity and as much eloquence and as spirited and as passionate as I could do. Hey, in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, I mean, it probably goes without saying that in the beginning, we probably don't have much of a voice, individual, distinct, let's say, identity. Where I know when I listen to things from 30, 40 years ago, I can tell exactly who I was listening to at the time.
Oh, me too.
Especially when I get into the early 80s and I hear these certain blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's Tony Williams. The single stroke power rolls and not too many doubles and the flams and but you know what? That was a part of who I became. It helped me to carve a little pathway into, okay, I want to do the Carl version, but Tony's so good, I'll use a little of his too, and somehow mold it over time.
Yeah.
You know.
but you know, you look at Tony, and he took a lot of Alan Dawson with him, his first teacher. Yes, and when you listen to Alan Dawson, you start to get some insight into what was happening on 4 and More and Miles in Europe from '63 and '64.
Oh, man,
you can hear links.
Well, you know, that's actually really interesting. And for those watching and listening, we have no script here. We just know we're talking. Although I do have certain things I know about Gary that I'm going to prompt him to tell us about. But, you know, when you listen to 4 and More, and then you listen to ESP, let's go a little later. What's another one? Kilimanjaro, maybe. Everything changed. Miles Smiles. Tony evolved in a short time into he evolved. He changed his voice, where 4 and More was more of a lighter, and then things got more intense. And of course, the music may have called for it, the compositions. But wow, what an evolution, you know?
Yeah, you could really see that it was on a path with that, and in that. And I sort of relate to it, you know, in my small situation comparatively with Allan, because this also went through periods and changes and very definite sort of turning points. And I remember that we just, sorry to continue on this thing, but we'd spend quite a lot of periods not playing, but when we'd come back, there'd be something slightly different about him and something slightly different about me, because we'd both been traveling in those mean times. And then when we come together, because the chemistry was kind of good and natural, and it just took place in a slightly different way each time. Right. And this was always very exciting. It's nice to be able to go back and review it and think, oh yeah, this was definitely the first phase or period, and I can see how that led to that one, and stuff that you don't even think about when it's you. But Tony, oh man, I mean, look, by the time of Nefertiti and Sorcerer, and he was like this magnificent painter. By this point, I mean, it's unbelievable how he had expanded the traditions of the jazz drumming way, but integrating such expansions and such an imagination, and having the courage and the conviction to see them through and go, hey, this is me. Yeah. I don't care. This is it's my road, you know, either come with me or
he had that,
stay with whatever.
That
very inspirational.
That I exactly thing he would do, and then he would do the fives, then like
yeah.
So I don't know how to make that happen. There has to be some kind of controlled bounce, but the way he executed that, so it just flowed. It wasn't forced. Nothing was forced. You can hear it. It's all just it's flowing. Beautiful stuff. Did you ever know? Did you know Tony? Did you ever meet him?
Yeah, I did once. It wasn't a great occasion, and I was a little scared that it might taint my sort of fan worship, whatever you call it. Really, my admiration and whatever. But it didn't. But I think he could be a little strange from time to time. But you know, I have to say, Carl, I expected it from Tony, because someone who painted, for want of a better doing word, to these ways and these creative and super incredible ways. I don't really have the words, but somebody who's expanded his voice to that degree, and what he integrated into his playing in terms of expression, had to be a complex fellow.
I'm sure.
And I heard he was, and he was pretty cool. But I think so. Sometimes you need a bit of that. I mean, it's. I know we were talking the other day about our formative experiences as players and working for people who change things.
Yeah, right.
In the most positive way of shining light on it, and often through harsh words or harsh criticism or just out and out cruelty. Hey, or violence. That worked pretty good too.
Yeah.
And what an artist.
You know what I was wondering is, because there are a bunch of things from previous conversations that I know about you, and I would love for you to share if you don't mind. We have a couple of different categories here. There's the luck or big, let's say a break, and I know you've had a couple that you've talked about, but then the other one, it's even, and especially with you, it's really fun. is how you, and I say this in a positive way, is you've orchestrated or created situations to create a more likely, the more likelihood of something happening. And you have some great stories there, and I would love for you to share about those. Maybe, what if we started off with, did you mention something about you were about 16? Was that a break for you? One of the first?
Yeah, Syd Lawrence. This and that I considered a really great break for me, significantly.
Sure. Was that was
because
London?
No, it wasn't. It was. I was still based in. Well, I was 16, so
right.
I just left school.
Okay.
Well, escaped from school, which was corresponds more to how I felt about being at school at that point. I mean, feeling alienated. But that's okay, because I was very much on a path, and I just had to believe it. That's all, and that's where I was going to be. And the opportunity came by way of Syd personally, because he knew my dad very well, and they'd worked together in a broadcasting orchestra in the north of England, where I'm from. And they'd come to know each other quite well over the years, and they'd have conversations occasionally, even though they'd both moved into different areas. Syd had become a leader of his own band, and was doing very well. But he just had a drummer leave, and he actually phoned my dad and said, I've just had this guy leave on me, and I need somebody pretty quickly.
Yeah. Wow.
And my dad said, you might want to take a listen to my lad. And I'm like within earshot of this and thinking, oh, God,
wow.
What are you saying? And it just so happens that I had, through the work of my dad in this big band he worked in, I had a real love of big bands.
Yeah.
And all of them, really, and had already extensively looked, by way of recordings, at all my big band drummer favorite players. And there were quite a few, and I was really just like a sponge, soaking up all that great material, and always fascinated and fascinated by how different they all were. You know, all in the same kind of core situation of making a big band work. Like, you're sitting in the middle of the band invariably as drummer, and you pulling all the sections together. It's a very certain discipline. Many will not know it, because you might never get the chance to play in a big band. But it's a very certain. It's a very beneficial experience to have gone through it, because you learn to be the center of music, which I believe is very vital, crucial in fact for all drummers, to be at the center of music, to make things work, and to make those adjustments, just to pull everybody where they need to be sometimes.
Yeah, it is a special skill. Not to interrupt you, but my dad had his own big bands, and he'd have rehearsals at the house. And he was my first teacher, and teaching me how to read music, and how setting up a kick instead of just playing the kick. That's boom, stuff like that, where I could learn a musical way, simple way to enhance the upcoming horn kick. You know what I mean? And so, but that's a special skill to acquire, because I would eventually sit in with his band at rehearsals. And then when I was 14, I ended up going and playing some gigs, because he would get out in front and play vibes. My dad.
Your father did?
Yeah. He's really good on piano, self-taught, and wrote some really cool stuff. But he would play vibes, and I would play drums.
Yeah.
And a very good experience. Like you say, it's a great, whether you like it or not, it's a great experience to get that discipline.
It is. And what particularly in that way too, where at least in my situation, I had 2 or 3 days to prepare. the band book, as it's known, the pad, as it's also known, full of music was what, anything between 370, 400 arrangements strong.
Yeah.
So he could just pick out any tune, you know, and say, you know, and there was a guy in the band, second trombone player, would turn around and cognitive skills with this guy. Syd would go, 1 o'clock tune, or strike up the band. And this guy, Andy, would instantly make the conversion to the number of the chart.
The chart number?
103, 103, 103. And it would just be like and he did this night after night. This was, and the more, when I think about it now, it's like pretty unbelievable. For some reason, I didn't think it was that special. Well, he's been there forever, you know, and he's many years, of course he knows, but in actual fact, that was a pretty incredible, amazing thing that he was doing. So, and it was like that. And my audition, for want of a better word, was a gig.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to sight read everything.
Wow.
Swing the band, mere detail, but no less crucial, and watch Syd for dynamics and count-ins and whatever, cut-offs, everything, and basically just hold my own. And it was really literally do or die, Carl. You know, it was more like you've got one chance. Get on there and do it, or don't. You know, and really it was that I didn't want to come off stage thinking, well, shit, you know, I've blown that. But in actual fact, it seemed to go okay. Yeah, I made a couple of mess ups and misread a couple of things and missed a couple of sections every now and again. But as well as a process of what we do, because and most definitely because we're drummers, we have to exercise and develop this sense of recovery. Something goes wrong, you have to recover, and at least try and make sure everybody else is feeling like you know where you are. Even though
I can relate to that one. Yeah.
We've all been there. So all these things, I managed to show a promising future ahead of me with the band. And at the end of the gig, Syd to say, well, okay, tomorrow night you've got to meet that guy and travel to there, and there, you know, you will meet another vehicle and they will drive you, you know, the vehicle I went in is parked up and you'll join 3 guys who drive from that point to the gig.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And every day was a kind of like an exercise to because I didn't drive at 16.
Mm-hmm.
So I was having to like you know, like thumb lifts everywhere and make journeys and it was a real life experience, a living experience too, to have to get that kind of stuff together.
Oh, sure.
At 16, I mean, it was it was almost like having to go into the services or something, and you know, or you know, closest thing I can imagine to maybe going into the Marines or something.
Yeah, sure.
But, you know, and whatever had happened, whatever difficulty, traveling or otherwise, that you had to be on time for that gig, all set up, clean shoes, clean shirt, ready to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, in. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Couldn't have clean shoes. Really, really get naily on that. So I'm really happy for those experiences. I know that it's a very old school way of coming into the business and stuff, but for me it was invaluable, really.
Well, that's like you say, you're living that experience in a whole different way than probably would happen now. I don't know, but it's also, I don't know, there might be something about making you work for it. I know that in some situations I had to really work for to get to gigs was tough, actually, because I couldn't drive either for the first 2 years I was playing out. So I had to arrange rides and be on time and, dress appropriately. And so it was definitely a challenge, but it's something that I'll never forget it. And I would do the same thing over again in a heartbeat,
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Well, to come up now, I wouldn't recognize life the same,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what to compare it to, so I wouldn't have anything to make a reference to. But it often amazes me sometimes how differently it's worked for young people, and how they've managed to cultivate such an incredible discipline. But also, it's not really just discipline; it's also about respect and benevolence, and to be not selfish, and to be considerate of everybody else's situation, and really just about every every process of consideration really has to be faced and dealt with and brought about in a situation like that, where you're expected to be so, because they're like that and they're professional. And the fact that I'm 16, which I was, of course, there was a little bit of a double standard, because they didn't want to hear me talking about anything, because I was just a kid. So it was like, shut up until you get to the bandstand, that is, But after and before the gig, we don't want to hear you, okay?
Wow, man, yeah.
So, in respect to them as elders and the people who achieved what they achieved in the way of experience, I admired experience, and I really wanted to show them that I admired that. So I did keep quiet most of the time. Not always. When the lead trumpet player threatened me and had me up against the wall, I was definitely not quiet then.
Oh, wow.
You don't really want to know more about that story. But it was all part of that era, Carl. It's about holding your own. And there's usually someone in a group of 16, 17 guys who's going to start making particularly because I was a 16-year-old brat who came along taking away the lead trumpet player's 2 solo features a night.
Oh.
And instead of his 2 solos, he had to make do with 1. And I had 2 solos.
Oh,
so
boy.
This brought about this sort of inner resentment, which well away from the band leader would result in him threatening me and threatening violence, the usual. Didn't matter, because I had another guy who was very, very handy fellow. And he knew quite a lot of moves from his days in the army and combat stuff. And he taught me a couple of different moves. And this guy pushed it a little bit too far. And I turned around very quickly and put him against the wall. Only for must have been 3-4 seconds max. But it never happened again, man.
Yeah, right. Wow. That's a good story. Right. It's funny, my dad used to talk about situations in a couple bands he had. And also, like, he was a big fan of Tommy Dorsey and Stan Kenton and Woody Herman and through the 40s and 50s. I guess there are stories of Tommy Dorsey and some others who would get pretty physical with certain people off stage, and it wasn't a pretty sight, but there was the old school discipline. It's the way they were dealing with stuff.
Yeah. And it's funny how you remember it with fondness. I mean, how out is that? It's It's like you remember your sergeant major with fondness, and he's done nothing but just be cruel to you and say the most horrible things to you and hit you, and for over 2 years, and yet you've got fondness for this guy. Amazing.
It is. So moving forward on the timeline. Well, actually, before we do that, I know that we had talked about, and I find this to be really interesting because, especially for anyone looking to major, if you will, in 2 instruments, I had wondered if maybe you were trying to decide, do I want to do piano or drums? No, you want to do both. And there was like an element of people like not taking you seriously, right? If you didn't pick
Yeah,
one or go with that. Did that create any roadblocks for you in moving forward at any point in time?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it presented itself in terms of major difficulty just trying to be a regular working musician. And that in combination with the fact that they knew I was a bit of a sort of wild improvising guy at heart, without knowing that I do actually have respect for all kinds of music and not just being a wild jazz guy. Yeah. But it seemed to be a problem if you were sort of noticed, and if you didn't really have this really super conformist thing socially and hang out at the pub and doing it. Well, I was a fit guy then. I didn't drink. And I sort of refused to acknowledge the importance of having to go after a session every day to the pub where everybody went to have 3 or 4 pints of beer. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to do that. Mm-hmm. I wanted to go home and work, or and similarly at recording sessions, if I practiced before, I get very sour looks. Like, what are you doing practicing? Or in the break or something, please keep quiet. We don't want to hear anything, which is fair enough. But it was just really out of enthusiasm and wanting to be the best I could be, really, to do that. But the other great thing, as you touched upon, which was a hindrance, was this fact that I was concentrating on 2 instruments at the same time in parallel, and to the same degree. It wasn't like one was, an extracurricular instrument or a second instrument. They were both number 1 instruments, and there wasn't really I could do anything about with that. It just came about that would be, and there was a lot of pressure from peer pressure, particularly when I moved to London after being in the Syd Lawrence band, to really pick an instrument, and to have. And to have this idea that you have to choose one over the other because of one reason, and that's apparently that people don't know how to place you, and also that maybe you can't be the real thing if you're also another instrumentalist on a different instrument, the real thing. And I really had to just battle this for many years, because it was a pretty stubborn kind of attitude, which I regarded as redundant. And I'd often give the answer back, saying something to the effect of, do I have to give up an instrument to please you, to meet your approval? And of course they'd fall short of a reply to that, but eventually it was just through perseverance and determination, I began to get this multi-instrumentalist tag, which was also wrong, by the way, because I don't play a plethora of instruments. I just play 2.
Right, right.
So now, at my grand age, I'm finally starting to see drummer and pianist, or pianist and drummer. And it's become commonplace, at least in association with my name. So, yeah. It's been a long thing. But I like to vocalize on these stories, not to really gain sympathy or whatever, but out of the hope that if young musicians or aspiring musicians of any age are hoping to get into similar situations, and you find yourself on 2 instruments, they have to sometimes fight for these things. And if I'd have buckled under and accepted this, and well, I'd pretty much just keep the piano in the background and at home and never work on it. What a stupid, imbecilic concept that would be.
Yeah.
But
when you look at how well-rounded you are as a musician, right? It's, for lack of a better way to describe it, you've got the big band experience, you have the drums and the keyboards, which you have your voice on each of those, and this is one thing I should have done, and I still think about doing it, is learning to play the piano, because I know that when I did it in college. You know, I took 2 years at school. My mom taught me a bunch, and I could play a bunch of the Bach etudes, but you know, I'd have to work at it now. But I don't know any musician, or let's say I'll stick with drums for now, because drummers are unfortunately labeled many times as, oh, they're just the drummer, because they don't know about theory, they don't know about this, they don't play a piano. Well, you know, the ones who do play, let's say, piano, or understand theory at least, or they compose and they write, I mean, that enhances their drumming, you know.
Well,
it seems like they're more look at Jack DeJohnette. He did the piano album. The guy can play piano. He sounds beautiful. So many other people out there, so I think, you know, you've created, you come out of it with the big band experience and all these other experiences, and then 2 instruments, enhancing everything about everything you do.
Well, it's the kind of coexistence of them both, adding up to being one whole, 2 halves of a whole form of expression. So in all aspects. By the 2 instruments and not just one. That's the only difference to me. But I think, with what you say, I think the more that you can pick up in terms of you know, application to piano for a while, and once you start reading, your contextually, you're understanding a lot more about form, and how harmony is shaped, and how that shapes different sections of the song, and you're understanding a lot more about melodic playing, so you can, in a sense, your empathy is opened up a little bit, so you can interact with the soloist maybe a little easier. I'm not 100% sure I'm accurate on all of these, but I don't think it can fail but broaden your understanding or comprehension of music. And similarly the other way, because piano, I mean, if you come up playing Bartok Microcosmos, which demanded some pretty tough contrapuntal things between right hand and left hand, the drums helped enormously to facilitate that on it. Because you've already got a handle on this 4-limbed way thing of playing drums, but the relationship between your right hand and left hand, they're already pretty liberated thanks to what you're doing on the drums. Different for a lot of people who are just pianists sometimes, you know.
Sure.
So really twofold. It's very beneficial, apart from very fulfilling to someone like me to be involved in an expression which covers both 2 instruments.
Sure, yeah. I just had a sidetrack. Chick Corea's been doing these daily workshops, and I've tuned in on a few for a little bit. And it's really nice to watch. The other day, he was actually, you couldn't see him on the camera, but he was playing the drums. He has a really beautiful feel on the drums, too. There are a bunch of videos of him online playing drums, and they're fun to watch, you know. His touch he's got a beautiful touch, and it's like he draws the sound from the cymbals, and that was fun to watch. And when I watched him, and I know that you've probably met him many times, there's a video of you playing with the Fourth Dimension somewhere in Europe where Chick Corea, Frank Gambale, Lenny White, maybe they're all standing in the back of the stage. And first of all, I think that song, that is a beautiful song, and your solo on that on keys just is killing me. And Ranjit, the drummer, Ranjit, I don't know how to say his name with Fourth Dimension. Ranjit, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was exactly. Beautiful, but I remember seeing Chick there, and then I think, well, Chick, he's got all this polyrhythmic stuff he does with the hands.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's been doing it a long time, but he also plays drums. I imagine that helps.
Yeah, I think it can't fail to. Really, it's just this cross-currenting that goes on, really, that I don't suppose it's until you do it that you fully realize how liberating it can be. But it is very liberating, and for the first time in my life, actually, I'm more conscious of it now than ever before. So it's, I'm very happy I stuck to my guns, Carl.
Yeah, and look what it's done for you. You've been in these musical situations now as drummer, as keyboard player, and with some of my heroes too.
And mine.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, we can. There are definitely a few things I'd like to cover that we already talked about recently. It's up to you what pathway you want to take, but I think there are a lot of people who would enjoy hearing about maybe your meeting with Allan the first time, and then that evolution, and then also how things worked with John McLaughlin when you started versus when you ended up with him, because it was a long time, but it's a great story though. And when you tell the story, please include the headphones part.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh, you read that story, yeah?
Oh, I love it. Yeah,
that's one of my favorites. Yeah, but we do what we can, and really, what's behind all this, particularly that example, is just trying to orchestrate or bring about your own chances and opportunity. Since I noticed you were doing, I've tuned in already to a lot of the interviews in regards to about success, and you're talking to many and various guys. They're highly illuminating interviews, and really encourage anyone else to watch them too, because they're really great to hear people who've got many years of professional and life experience expand on that issue. It's really, really quite interesting. I've got my own thoughts on it too, but again, I was never really blessed with a lot of work coming my way. I think I sort of alluded to that briefly before, to the point where I hardly worked in London at all. So I got used to the idea that I had to do something about certain things, because it was not due to being complacent or necessarily being a bad player or even an unsuitable player. I wasn't even being given the chances. And I had to look into really why that was. And since I wasn't really strutting around being an arrogant person or insulting people, I was kind of wondering why that was. And I was coming up with certain conclusions, but also trying to formulate a way of taking responsibility to get myself moving in areas that I wasn't moving in. And what better to get into the areas that I wanted to get in, and I had a natural propensity musically and passion towards musically, those, and to get known to people, certain artists in particular. And for that matter, I would say, and what a lot of people do, what is the expression? You do a lot of making yourself known. You're not grandstanding. You're something standing. Anyway, so what's the word?
I mean, like networking or
networking.
Networking. Yeah, okay.
Networking. Sorry. So you go about and try to hang out in the places where there is a certain group of people or a certain artist that you would like to play with, and try and make yourself known to him or her, and surely, slowly but surely, these endeavors start to pay off. Not that they had any effect in the first one with Allan, which was about 1978. And this was a chance thing. This was nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, he like walked into a gig, right? Were you playing?
Yeah, he did. He just happened to, and it was the perfect night to do so as well, because I'd been given notice from the band that I was working at the club with, and had been there 2 weeks with, and it was my last night. I'd been fired from usually playing too extrovertly or too loudly or too insensitively or whatever. That was the case though. But okay, hands up, I probably was, but I meant it. I meant it for the betterment of the music, believe it or not.
Yep.
But we all do. We're naive, and we're just throwing too much at it. We just haven't got the balances right, that's all. Anyway, I wasn't very happy about being fired, because there was something disturbing that I found disturbing about it, and naturally I looked to myself for, like, what is it I've done, and had to go through all that, and really as a player, that last night I was saying, okay, well, it's time to move on. So I really am going to play the way I feel this music tonight. So there was even a more accented audaciousness to what I was doing, if that's correct grammar. And unbeknown to me, Allan had been in the audience, and he'd come into the club earlier in the evening with Jack Bruce. At which point I was mid-set, and his explanation to me said I was just nailed to the wall by this furious intensity and commitment that you showed. And I didn't even know he was there. And of course, I'd come off and seeing him, I knew exactly what he looked like, and I was already a fan of his playing, obviously. And he said, oh, I'm Allan Holdsworth, and you might not know me. I said, of course I know you are. You're the great Allan Holdsworth. So, and he said, well, you're the great whatever he called me, and said, I'd like to give you a call and try and interest you to come and have a play with me. And I'm going, you don't have to work to get me to be interested in playing with you. I'll do it now.
Right.
Do it right now. And he said, well, look, I'll if you give me a number, I'll give you a call tomorrow. And a certain part of me was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, right.
Maybe not. But he did. And the morning came around, and he said, well, it's Allan. I met you last night. And I'm like, I know, And he said, well, look, I've got an opportunity to go into No Miss or Lansdowne Studio, wherever it was. I can't remember now. And he said, I've just taken out the room for the afternoon, and maybe we can get together. So I was there. I'm in. I'm there. And it was just so exciting to get with the guy, really, because it was the first time that nothing was said. And usually for me, in situations at that point in my career, it was usually, listen, I need you to be a good groover for this gig, or I need you to be a good like a pocket guy. You can play jazz, not too many fill-ins, not too out, but just keep it nice and reined in, but swinging, and I'd usually have these kind of directions. With Allan, I got nothing. It was like, and I think I even asked him, how do you want to play? What would you like to do? And he said, oh, just play. Okay. Any particular way? No, nothing forthcoming. And we just started. And I see a direct link to that and the very end of my playing days with Allan. You were there for it.
I was there on your last tour with him. Yes. Yeah.
And there was just an instant connection.
Yeah.
This isn't like, it isn't even about how good your facilities, how good you are. It's a thing, does something really work? Is there a connection which you can't really put into words? It just either works with somebody to an okay degree, a very good degree, or an amazing, magical one. And this was one of those, and it just happened. It just was a good chemistry. And I remember waking up, opening my eyes, because I don't remember being too present even in that improvisation. But when we sort of came to, if you like, it was dark outside, and the other guys that had come along to the session had gone at some point. We didn't even know when they'd gone. It's like all invisible except for what we'd just been immersed in. Just the two of us, just guitar and drum.
Wow.
And I really can't say enough about it. I was truly blessed to have that come about, because had it been one night later, Allan walking into the club.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So what yeah, the chemistry, and you can feel it too when you listen to the music, you and him. It's unmistakable chemistry.
Oh, it's nice to say that. Oh, yeah. I think we had fairly, I don't mean this to sound boastful, but somehow I knew that this was going to be something. And I never knew what, and I never knew how it would develop and expand itself in the music, but and reveal itself. But I knew it would be something, because it was just too big a connection not to be. And I think that of course it was his music, his project. It was what he wanted to do, but he wanted such input from a drummer. He almost wanted to be a secondary director in a way. Well, not even that, a director. He liked being taken for a ride a little bit. He preferred to have someone else make those kind of musical suggestions, for instance. So we'd all do it to a certain degree, but drummers, he really wanted that form. Yeah, I could see how this was going to work out. And I think that I'm happy to conclude that I think we had a little area in the realm of jazz fusion, jazz rock, whatever you call it, that was our little contribution, his primarily, but I think of it as ours, of into the realm of the development and the trajectory of that music. So it's nice.
First of all, I just recalled just now an interview I heard with him, and the interview was much more about the beer tapping system that he invented.
Yeah.
However, and also about bicycling, as he described it as a thinking machine, which I can relate to that. When I ride, I think. But also the drummers. He was talking about drummers laying down the tracks, meaning the railroad tracks. Like, they put down the track, and we go with them because they're leading us. The drummer leads the way. And that interview is very interesting too. So
I bet it is. Yeah, I think. I mean, we're just coming up to the 3rd anniversary now of his passing.
Yes, was it maybe yesterday or today or something? It's very close to now, though. It's very tomorrow. Really?
The 15th. 2 days.
Okay.
Excuse me. in 2 days' time. And yeah, so I'm thinking about him a lot again, as you would expect. But I really admired how he stuck to his guns. He really stuck to his guns. I'd made a lot of decisions early on, you know, along the lines of what we were talking about as youngsters, and the decisions we make for ourselves, and how committed we are to seeing that through. And he was pretty relentless about that. He was always going to do things the way he saw it to be done.
Yeah.
And he would make no compromise on that level. And that's quite a quality, really. I mean, that says something about an artist's integrity, even at the risk of jeopardizing relationships, friendships, associations, whatever. You will do things your way, and that's the way it was for him. So,
yeah, it just reminds me on that interview I'm telling you about, he also talks about the Warner Brothers contract and how Eddie Van Halen helped to facilitate that, but that Warner Brothers wanted him to be a certain way, and he said, that's it, I can't do it, I'm out, or something, basically.
Yeah.
There, right? That was that IOU? Was that a Warner Brothers release? Or maybe that was...
No. It was the next one. Road Games.
Road Games. Okay. Oh, right. Got it. Yes.
Yeah. And there's another side of Alan's character, bless him. And one, since we're integrating this success theme as in your interviews, it's a funny thing with Alan, because I would say that he shunned success purposely.
Mm-hmm.
And if a great opportunity came his way for some kind of great tour that really paid well, or it had great exposure, or it took you to a really fantastic place, he'd often, I don't know what, you know, Jimmy Johnson said Alan was wired differently. Mm-hmm. And this makes the most sense to me. He was wired very individually, uniquely. So, and he really didn't let himself enjoy what he could have done. Mm-hmm. I say that with a tinge of sadness, because he denied himself possibilities because of the way he'd shoot himself in the foot. Mm-hmm. a lot, just because he wanted to. I think he felt that he had to suffer, Carl. And,
I've heard a little bit about that, mostly from Jimmy Haslip, who knew him pretty well. Did a few tours, and you were on that last tour or I should say your last tour was with Alan, was with Jimmy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think after I saw you at the Iridium, I think you might have gone to Indonesia or somewhere, because I saw some great video of that footage of that concert online. It's incredible.
That's actually from South Korea.
Oh, South Korea, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's a big festival there, and and that would be the last time around.
And you had no idea, of course.
No, but you know, Alan had a lot of issues and underlying health issues, and you know, I can refer to it in terms of disease as well. It had reached its height beyond any sensible proportion by that time, and had been growing since 2000. And there was a combination of elements, but what I saw him consume in terms of beverage first thing in the morning once was enough to tell me this ain't going to go on much longer.
Yeah.
So
I've heard about that too, but it is very sad. It's almost like punishing himself, but you know,
suicide.
You know, he didn't like it. I got to meet him many times. He was always nice. That last time not the last time, close to the last time I saw him. Actually, we were at a show at the Iridium. I was with Leonardo, and then Alan walked in to hear the same show. Holy crap! Leonardo said, "Yeah, I just texted him. He was upstairs at the bar." And I said, come down. He said, I don't want to. I don't want people to see me. Come down. So he came down and sat with us. That's where I told him the story about how I saw when the first time I saw him, I wanted to leave after he played because I didn't want the sounds to leave my head. And I don't think he could really accept that as a compliment because he didn't feel he was worthy or something, which is so sad. So sad. But hey, you know what? Yeah. My life's never been the same. So I'm grateful.
I'm happy to hear that. Mine will never be the same either.
Yeah. And what would have been? We'll never know. Thankfully, what it would have been without his music, right? I mean, who knows? But I'm just glad it was there, and it is still there.
Oh, I have absolutely no comprehension what life would be like as a musician without his music.
Yeah.
17, 18 years old, we started.
That's beautiful. Wow.
36 years.
Yeah, really, man. So,
but, oh yeah, you wanted to know? Yeah, the John story, right?
Oh, do you mind?
I don't mind.
Okay, listeners, this is Gary Husband. I'm going to tell about the John McLaughlin story because I asked him recently, you know, how did that come about? You know, have you known him a while and this and that? And this is actually, when it comes to the standpoint of success, I'll compare it only in one way to something personally that I did, which was to position myself to get asked to teach for a company so that I could get out there because I loved this doctor's material so much, and I bugged her. And then another time was the job at the university. I wanted to work at the university, and I bugged her for a year. And in both situations, I was asked to, okay, come work, teach for me, work here. Well, this is a similar concept. Yeah. It's a great story. It has some really funny parts to it that I love.
It's actually one of many, but I will.
Okay, tell all you want.
I haven't had the courage to really admit this to people. I quite openly divulged the fact that I used to stalk John McLaughlin quite a lot, literally. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know it's got very sinister implications to that. You know, this guy is standing in the shadows, and there he is again. You know, but it wasn't really like that. I mean, I'd make regular and various approaches to him to make myself known and to make what I was doing known to him, and to try to lay sand into what I considered musically could be a very nice fit or a situation for me to be useful in his musical world. I considered that I could be useful to him.
And you wanted him to know this.
And I wanted him to know it. And he isn't going to know that if I just, go in the background, unless there's a chance thing that happened with Allan. Does it happen twice in one lifetime? I don't know. But I wasn't about to wait around to find out. And since I got to know from a mutual friend who always entrusted me with information if he was anywhere where I was, in America or Britain. And he arrived to do a rehearsal with the band with Danny Gottlieb and Jonas Hellborg and those guys. So it must have been the mid-'80s.
Yeah.
Thereabouts.
I saw that band in '86, about a month apart from the first time seeing Allan. Yeah.
Yep. And they were in town. I got to know, and the very morning I got to know this, I hot-footed it down to the studio. I knew where it was. I think it was No Miss in West London. And I bullshit my way into the studio complex saying, got an interview to do, or I'm involved with this, that, or the other, or I have a rehearsal. Can't remember how I managed to do it, but they let me in. And God, I just realized how like that movie King of Comedy this sounds. Robert De Niro.
That's great.
Anyway, so I get in there. What's interesting is that I have armed myself with a cassette machine, a black cassette Walkman that we used to have in those days.
Yeah.
It's lined up right at the start of a track called what was later to become Un-Merry-Go-Round, which we'd done with Allan in Los Angeles the year before. And it was still incomplete, but it still had it had all the drums on it and most of the, well, it was absolutely more or less completed. Had the guitar solos on and everything. And a pair of headphones. So I had this pair of headphones plugged into the Walkman, and I'm kind of waiting around the area of the studio. I can hear that it's them playing. And finally, John comes out to either go to the loo or go for collect a coffee or something. And he came out and he spots me and he goes, "Oh, Gary," because by this time I've made enough advances, approaches, what have you, to him and given him things, and just greet him and show my respect and admiration every time. And he said, "So how you doing?" And I'm going, "Yeah, great, fine, thanks. Great to see you. And wow, the band sounds terrific. It's it's a great band and this and that." And so he said, "I'm just going to get myself a coffee. I'll be right back." So he does that. I get this machinery ready, get the headphones out of the bag, and he comes around, sees me again, and gets sidetracked a little bit by a pinball machine. And we're almost standing next to it. So we move to the pinball machine. He just starts having a game, like you would in the middle of an intense rehearsal, just to clear your head. And he said, he's playing the game. He said, "So what's been going on, Gary?" And I said, "Well, do you mind if I play you what's been going on?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I've got a little track here I'd like you to hear. He said, "Would you hear it while you're playing the game?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I could." I said, "Good." So I get the headphones out and I put them on his head. Here's the camera. I put them on John's head. Okay.
You put them on his head. That's one of my favorite things. That's great.
So I put them on his head. Yeah, he doesn't even know there's a pair of headphones coming at him. And he sort of feels this, and he's still playing. And to go, "Oh yeah, he's put a pair of headphones on me," and I press play, and he gets it. I turn it up too because I know that his hearing was not everything since the Mahavishnu days.
Sure, right.
And he listens through almost the entire track. This is good. Forgotten how long that track is, maybe between 15 and 20 minutes even.
Yeah, it's in the high teens at least. Yeah, that's great.
Anyway, I was delighted because he definitely got past the first section, which was very powerful. Then he goes into a big long drum solo, or almost immediately, very soon into the track. And he was kind of ducking and diving a little bit while he was playing, and I was just really happy that he was listening to it. And at the end of it, he kind of looked at his watch and gave me the headphones back. And I said, "Gary, I better get back, and time's moving on." And I'm watching him go down the hall, and he opens the door, and just before he opens the door fully, he turns back to me and says, "Is that you with Allan?" And I go, "Yeah, quite recently." And he said, "Well, it's quite something." And I could tell by the way he said it, and then he quickly turned his attention to the room and disappeared. And my mission was done for the day. I mean, I'm not going to be there when he comes out to say, "Will you listen to another track?" I mean, of course, then we're getting obsession time.
Sure.
So just the once was enough to plant in what I consider to lay sand, to plant the seed. And he remembers that occasion today.
Oh, really? That's great.
Yeah, he remembers. Yeah, and he often says to me, "I remember when you did that. I remember you showing it up with a lot of audio gifts for me, many of which I imagine probably didn't get heard or got lost, along with the things given to him by many of his other admirers. But I made sure that he heard something that was strong." And I think that, And so, okay, it didn't pay off until 2004, and I was involved in John's Industrial Zen album.
Yes.
Then it came my time.
Yeah.
That was result of laying that sand. That was the result of going out, being proactive, not being a pain in the butt, but being someone who cared and admired enough to show up and say,
right. So there was a pretty big gap in time from the first, putting the headphones on him to doing the album, doing the recording, and then joining the band. But
maybe yes.
But there's just digressing for 1 second. Sort of is persistence pays off, they say, or if it doesn't pay off. Well, if you're not persistent, nothing will pay off usually, unless it's luck, right, or chance. But if you basically what you did is in a respectful way, consistently made a presence in his life, and it paid off. And that's
I make sure
that's a great. It's actually a really great story. You didn't give up. If you gave up, you might not be doing that with him now. And this is a long-term relationship here too, as far as being part of Fourth Dimension. We're talking, what, 15, 16 years?
Thereabouts, yeah.
Yeah.
No. 15, 16 years, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, he's had this quartet for a long time, right? I just love this band. Yeah.
But I quite like relaying the story, because it shows you a bit about that perseverance that you speak of, Carl, and just a certain determination. But I had no choice. But I didn't have any work. I had to make other roads. And since I had to make other roads, why not try to work to ones that would be the most ideal? And this really was my sort of code behind this whole line of approach,
right,
to get myself geographically more international, because I couldn't work in my own country, whatever the reasons were, and also to become known to as many different musicians as possible in a more global sense, instead of specializing in one little area. So, and all that paid off.
Yeah, so exactly. I think there's a good lesson in that for everyone,
Yeah.
I mean, in my situation, it didn't take 20 years or anything like that, but if I didn't keep, I told this Dr. Emily, I said, I am going to teach for you.
I love that.
I kind of made it sound like I was kidding, but I know she knew I really wasn't, because we'd be talking like, I just want you to know, just so you know, I will be teaching for you.
Yeah, I love that.
And then finally it happened, and same thing with the gig at the university. That was a different story, but I was bugging this lady like every couple of weeks, or at least once a month for a year.
Yeah.
And I had an interview. She hired me on the spot, and I started the next day. So that was the end of that. At the beginning of a gig that I love. So, but if I gave up, I wouldn't be doing either one right now.
Well, it's the same. I think we're talking. We're on the same page there.
Yeah.
This is. I think it's one thing to realize this, and another thing to not sit back and say, "Well, if I wasn't me, it could have happened, but it couldn't. It's probably going to happen to somebody else." And this any kind of negative or defeatist attitude in myself, somebody so devoutly spiritual as John, for instance, I once made the stupid inquiry to him, what religion do you lean towards the most? And of course, the answer was only what kind of path, really, more as in a sort of spiritual path. And I knew that he was into not Tibetan monks, but I can't even think. Certain, definitely not a follower, but a respecter of certain paths. And I said, what is your ideal path? And he said, I have this path. I very much like Buddhist countries. He said, but as far as religion goes, I only have one religion. And I kind of knew what he was going to say, but even if I didn't, I wanted to hear him say it. And he did. And he said, inner strength.
Oh, wow.
And that really hit me, Carl.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he said, I don't want to know about organized religion. I don't want to know about religion, period. In fact, I only have one religion, inner strength.
Mm-hmm.
And
boy, what a beautiful answer too, though. I love that.
Yeah. And you can make a link to look at what we're going through now. Yeah. And without inner strength and without determination, you see these correlations all over the place. But it is an extraordinary time now to.
So in the future, when people are, in case you're wondering what Gary's saying right now, we're in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we're all sheltered up everywhere. You're in England right now, right?
Yeah.
I'm in Syracuse, New York. People all over the world are staying home. Things are different. When they eventually slowly get back to businesses opening and this and that, I think things will be a little bit different. Many things will be different, but inner strength is something that we all need this right now because it's there's a lot of unknown out there, and well, we know that Zoom is overrun with video calls. I mean, but we're still able to connect, be creative. I'm doing a lot of online training, and I only started doing it when this happened, and because I was afraid to do it before, but now I'm forced. I had to, or I would have no clients, and it's working out beautifully. I actually like it. I kind of love the fact that I can be right here in this little room. I can talk with Gary. I had trained 2 clients this morning before we talked. It's like, great. I rolled out of bed and I came into this room. But speaking of being creative, your VideoCast, GaryHusband.com. You have several VideoCasts there, and would you share about that with us? Because I know that there are people who are watching your posts on Facebook, getting a lot of traffic, and hopefully people are buying those from you too, because the investment in that is, I think, probably one of the best things anybody can do. Well, I love the fact you also have the audio track with no drums.
Yeah, I do. Well, I'll just outline what's there.
Sure.
In terms of it conceptually, it's basically about what is it about? Playing drums. Besides that, it's about encouraging creativity, really.
Sure.
And hopefully inspirational in a sense of expanding what you bring into your voice and believing in it. Very big thing. Belief.
Yeah.
In what you do.
There's some inner strength along with that too,
Yeah. Having the conviction.
Yes.
Absolutely and fully that. And because I make the point very early on in the VideoCast, all my heroes, and I had a vast many in all kinds of different areas of music, drummers of very, very different kinds. But the one common thing they all shared with, they delivered what they conveyed something with such immense conviction and inner determination and clarity and no mistaking what was being said.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm talking about drummers from Earth, Wind and Fire, James Gadsden with Bill Withers.
Right.
Any of them, from Jack to Jeanette, the most abstract painters in drumming, to Tony, to Billy Cobham, Mara to Michael Walden, Tommy Aldridge. I don't care. You know, Keith Moon.
Yeah, I forgot about Michael Walden.
Conviction, just pouring out of them. And it's like the one common link between all of them. It was like the intent was evidently to strike you with a bolt of lightning.
Yeah.
And that's the way I felt with all those great players. So I wanted people to know that, just in order to be able to not say, oh, well, this is a lesson, you know, I must cultivate that. Because I think that can come in quite a few different ways. I think the fundamental is to really start believing yourself, believing in your own creativity, and try and lessen, hopefully, the ongoing propulsion or responsibility, it seems, with some of them, to play like somebody else all the time. And what I'm saying is, why waste your time? Time is very precious, isn't it? As you said, Carl, with something that's been done.
Yeah.
Allan told me that. Said,
well, I'm not surprised. I was actually just thinking about it. I think it's in the interview I spoke of earlier where he talks about beer, bicycling, drummers. He also talks about why would I want to play somebody else's music? That's their job to play their music. Yeah. I have no interest in playing their music, not because I don't like it, maybe, but it's because that's their music. They should play that. I will play my music. And also, Buddy Rich, a long time ago, I remember Buddy Rich made this comment. I was there when he said it. It was so funny. It was a backstage conversation. When I was a kid, that's when I, just digressing for a second, 1970, I was 9 years old. It was right around this time of year. It was April. My dad took me to see Buddy Rich, and I'll never forget it. And that sealed the deal. I had to be a drummer. And so we're backstage, and this guy says, you should come down the road because there's this guy playing drums who sounds just like Bobby Colomby. The Blood, Sweat, and Tears guy, I think is. But he's like, why would I want to go somewhere to hear somebody that sounds just like somebody else?
Oh, really? I didn't know, man. I didn't know.
But I mean, think about that. You know, would I want to go hear a Gary Husband? Maybe somebody who sounds just like you, or Jack DeJohnette, or Elvin, or I'd rather see Gary Husband and Elvin and Jack. You know, let's go for the real deal, where it really came from. Yeah, I respect their admiration. I always just respect. There are people who are out there who sound very much like Allan, but you know it's not him. Yeah, it bugs me in one way, and yet the respect towards him, I can feel it, and that's why I don't get too pissed off. You know. And I admire their talent too, but we all have our influences. I'm really not trying to judge anybody whatsoever, but in your video cast, to get back to that, I love how you do that. You talk about being an individual.
yeah, I think central to any of the videos, we've done about 9 or 10. I think we're working on another one right now to launch very soon. And they're really dealing with different realms of music too. So I hope that they are broadening for a player who perhaps might feel embarrassed to be participating in something improvisational for the first time, to do it alone. And to make those experiments alone, great, because you have downloaded music with each VideoCast minus drums. And with the video, you have the talk through from me and an example. So
yes,
it's nice to be able to do some playing on my own videos, but it's only by example to them. It's not about me. It's about whoever's watching. And really just encourage your creativity, and hopefully they're inspirational and as they are informative. And yes, you get a chart and a drumless mix. You can download these plus see bonus features and everything else. We've kept the price about as modest as we can, considering there's a production involved.
Yeah.
Lights, cameras, and venue space that I've gear that I've had to invest in. I have to make something back, but we've tried to keep it as low as possible. But I hope the value of it, because once you've downloaded it, or anybody's downloaded it, it's there on your laptop or iPad, and you've got it, and you can just work away and post your own interpretations of some of the music that I'll put up there, which is really fulfilling and exciting for me, because I can just witness, like, oh wow, that's a really incredible or different kind of pass than the last guy, and it's really, I'm having a great time with it, just being responsible, or the catalyst maybe as well of people stretching their creativity.
I love that. I love that.
So it's there, and there is no subscription thing, so you're not locked into any kind of package financially. You can go to the page at garyhusband.com, VideoCasts, and if you see a title that sticks out, or a particular field of music, you think, oh, I'll take the warming up one, or I'll take the jazz rock one, or the soloing one, and just take that only if you wish, or you can buy all of them.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, think about for the price that they are, though. I mean, you can't take a 1-hour lesson from anybody for that price.
No.
And so now you not only get more than a lesson, you get a permanent availability to that lesson, repeated over and over, and you get to experiment with, right?
Yeah.
So that's a great, in my opinion, it's a great investment. I know that you have a City Nights is up there as one of them, isn't it?
Yeah, we've just that was right, in its form up until recently was just for drummers, but I had a lot of guitar players inquiring about it, saying, listen, have you got a track minus guitar? So I do a mix for them, write a chart for guitar, same for bassist, same for keyboardists. So we're venturing into that to see how that works out. But at the moment, it's wailing ahead as the big seller.
Man, that's beautiful. City Nights is a song that Gary wrote, and I love that song. I just see here in my own mind here, I hear so many ways I'd like to try to play that. So I think I'm going to get that one soon. I got to practice, man. I am terrible right now. I can barely do a roll.
You get a complimentary one, Carl.
Well, I'd rather give you my money, because you've given me so many things over the decades. It's the least I can do. Plus, you've given me time twice. We had a little problem with our first interview with the corrupt files, so we're back at it again today, and it's still recording. Everything looks good. But so people go to garyhusband.com, That's where you can find
GaryHusband.com. Yeah.
Right, GaryHusband.com. So I'll put a link on there. And then we were talking the other day about how, for more information, if you go to the UK version of Wikipedia.
Oh yeah. Well, it's
Right?
until we're expanding the site. It hasn't really got all my albums listed anywhere at the moment. So
Okay.
they'll excuse me. They are all listed at Wikipedia, in the UK Wikipedia.
Okay.
Of a page for me.
That's the accurate Wikipedia version. Yeah.
Yeah, especially so because I had somebody do it because I got into some complications trying to alter my own very wrong evaluation of what my
that's right.
biography was.
Oh, that's right. They banned you, basically, right?
They said I would no longer have the facility to do anything. So I had to get somebody else to enter all the correct information.
Imagine that. So on a completely different note, since we talked last time, there's a song that's in my head now. It's been in my head for days. Dodgy Boat.
Oh yeah.
I love that song, and the way you play on that, man, holy crap. I just love it. Who wrote that song?
Steve Hunt.
Really? Yeah, Steve's written some nice stuff.
Yes. He wrote one of the other favorites of a lot of fans of Alan, Joshua.
Oh, yeah, beautiful. Beautiful song, yeah. Yeah, Dodgy Boat just is the way you're drumming on that one. And, Alan just sounds quintessential Alan on that song to me. It's like the sound, just everything about it. He's just singing so beautifully with the guitar. And I think there might be a little syntax on that album too, but I have to say, as much as I found the syntax to be really cool, I like to hear him on guitar just because that's my personal preference. Although I really like how he did some stuff with syntax. I have no idea how that machine worked, but it looked pretty complicated. Dodgy Boat is on a Wardenclyffe Tower. Well, at least that's the version that I have. What a journey, man. It's only 4 minutes long, not even, but what a journey. Beautiful.
Oh, well, for my 2 cents on it, but thank you anyway. It was actually with that album, it was a change in Alan's working methods, in that he built a lot of the tracks up and finished his solo ahead of time.
Oh,
so
really?
he brought what he'd finished in the form of a already finished track, and we could then get our interplay, what was existing. It's kind of like opposite of what he did before, where usually, traditionally, he'd take the rhythm section takes, and then Jimmy would play along with me, or Schoolie, usually, and we'd get a good track together, or we could carry on until we got one. And then, which was, I mean, we really only had like a series of a few days to do those records. We were on such a budget with them, and but the spirit is correct on them. Some of the playing's a little inaccurate from time to time, but hey,
yeah,
I like what they say, because they're all kind of little paintings from different periods. So I'm very fulfilled that we did that. All of that.
There's another song I want to ask you about, which I think is total genius. I'm gonna play it because you are doing this. You'll know it.
Yeah.
Here it comes. Here it comes. Ah. Oh man. How did you think of that groove, man? I love that.
He wanted imagination. He wanted input.
That's
And,
just when I heard that. I think I can't remember because I got that first on vinyl, and I think it's the first cut maybe.
Yeah.
And it just is like, boom, here you go. With, like you say, imagination. I said, how can anyone think of a groove like that? This is amazing.
Yeah. Well, the truth, I mean, jet lag can bring about a lot of positive things, Carl.
Yeah.
I'm usually flown in from somewhere to try and get used to the hours in a matter of hours. And I remember all through Tabacron, for instance, that one and the next one I have huge affection for. In fact, that whole period of Allan's music too.
Sand?
And Sand, yeah. But they both represent a period of probably the most excessive invention that I took the ball and ran with, really, because I was invited to do so. Allan wanted ideas. He said, bring something to it, create something to this. And I'd take a little demo of it back to the hotel room and just really spend all night with it and try to hear stuff and dissect what might be a nice kind of pattern to play alongside that, which interestingly offset Allan's music, to highlight it by not nailing it with exactly what's happening, but to do something counter to it. And that was really my ambition. And also because it's the drums, to try and expand the drums a little bit in that area of music. I loved it for that.
You do that all the time. Oh, you do that all the time, but I tell you, that was a transitional period, I would say, for sure. If you look at IOU versus later stuff with Allan. But there's that was a beautiful period. And the other one I have here, Pudwood. Remember Pudwood?
Yeah.
There are some things on that Pudwood version that are just, and Jimmy John, you can hear that's Jimmy Johnson. You just can't mistake that's Jimmy Johnson and you. Yeah, I love that too.
Yeah. My ultimate brother, right there.
I ran across. In fact, I can send you this. Somebody posted. I've got it downloaded. I can send it to you real easy. But you work with him so much. But what's really cool is I think this came off. I heard through a rumor it was like a board tape. So it's not a video, but it's on YouTube, and it's Jimmy Johnson and it might be Vinny Colaiuta on drums. It's one of the rare live gigs he did with Allan. But the cool thing about it is you can hear Jimmy so well because they just cranked him way up in the board mix. Yeah. And I never heard him well enough to realize that guy is completely insane in the best way possible. Like, not only is he way up here, but he's down there. Like in a half a second, he just covers the whole range of the bass. And I've always been a fan. I sent that to my son recently. He said, "That's insane, Dad. That's crazy cool." What a guy.
He was a wind instrument player to begin with.
Really?
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
So when you start considering his melody and his way of moving in a linear sense, you hear that this other instrument was behind a lot of his conception, really, as to what he brought to the bass. But it just so happens he plays bass in the most, I was talking to him only the other day, and I tried to explain, what is it that Jeff Porcaro, Steve Gadd, us mortal humble beings with the Allan lineups, I can imagine any of the drummers, Carlos Vega, Simon Phillips, I think, had him do an album. It doesn't, the drummers with all the different projects Jimmy's done. And there is not a drummer that doesn't feel, God, this guy makes me sound great.
Yeah.
That's what Jimmy does.
Yeah.
sounding great, of course, himself, but he's got this innate, he is so gorgeous to play with for a drummer. He's really accommodating. So
I can't even imagine what it'd be like to work with him. That would be a dream.
yeah.
He's
I'm only skimming the surface as to what his attributes.
I'm sure. I met him one time. He's very friendly. In fact, my son and I were there in Buffalo, New York, and it was a rare occasion where the trio, it was Chad, Jimmy, and Allan, did a clinic, and then we got to hang out afterwards and talk with everybody. My son says, because he loves them too, he's like, "You gonna record your own album?" He said, "Nah." So I don't write music. I just play it for other people. I feel best when I'm just supportive, you know? So it was interesting.
You know, he had his band in the 80s. Did you know Flim and the Beebies?
Flim and the Beebies. He mentioned Flim and the Beebies, but he didn't seem like he was proud of it when he told us about it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they probably made about 8 and 9 recordings.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, what a musician, man.
Yeah.
You know, it isn't just drummers. It's why does James Taylor adore him as much as Barbra Streisand, or any other of the unbelievable list of people he's played with? Everybody adores Jimmy.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah.
deservedly so.
You know, the thing I was thinking about before we wind up here in a couple minutes, there's a random thought. Way back in the beginning of this interview today, this conversation, I was thinking about how you're talking about your role in a big band versus your role with an Allan Holdsworth trio, and you're a third. Well, if you measure it, I mean, just physically, you're a third of a trio. But your voice becomes huge, especially with an opportunity in a situation like Allan and being asked and wanted to be creative. But what's really interesting is you worked with different bass players in that gig. So I imagine that, my experience, even in a quartet or, trio, even playing standards, is the dynamic can change a lot. How was that for you when you had somebody else on the tour with you? I'm sure it was great, but it had to be somewhat different, right?
Oh yeah, it changed it completely.
Yeah.
Jimmy Schooley Sparrison.
Oh yeah, I love him.
Put the beat in a very different place to Jimmy.
Yeah.
Schooley was kind of on the back. He was sat on the back of the beat a lot. And he was consistent, very groovy, incredibly musical, great big sound. But he'd sit on the back, and that was that made what I was used to sort of throwing at it in the way that I feel very different. So I had to make those adjustments too, and I think we all did. It's once something changes in the machinery, it's up to, I guess, I'm thinking a bit like surgery. I've had back surgery. Have you lately?
I had a hip replacement last 4 months ago.
Did you? Oh, well done. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing, man. Yesterday I'm hauling big, heavy things through the yard, putting in the dock in the water, and I'm grateful for this. But it's back to the surgery and the switching things up. Things change. Yeah. Things change.
Yeah. And so there's like if they do some work on a disc, the other vertebrae or whatever however this is correctly explained, start to have a new tension and start wearing in a different way than they did before, and all these different consequences. So I think it's a little bit like that when you change somebody in a band, but Schooley very quickly to make the adjustment, really. And just to find a little bit of a different place. That's okay. It feels more comfortable if I'm sat here. It's just just a little slight gear change. And then again with Jimmy Haslett, adorable as well, and what a character on the instrument.
Yeah,
and
totally. Yeah,
what a beautiful person too. And it's my one and only so far chance to play. I hope for more.
Yeah.
You're listening, Jimmy.
I'll send him over a link and say, hey, dude, check out, check it out.
Yeah.
He's been home. I don't think he's left home in like 3.5 weeks. We communicate kind of a lot because of this CD that just came out that I did that he produced and plays on. But
and I can't wait to hear it with Kinsey and Novak and all these different guys.
Oh God, yeah, and Peter Erskine. Well,
what's the album called again?
Dream.
Dream. And who's the main credited name? It's your name.
Yes. It's my one and only ever CD in my name.
So now you know, listeners, watchers, it's a CD to get.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy with it. Very proud of it. It's all about, obviously it's not about me, it's about we. The we is the people who can help. It's all about helping people. I started a nonprofit foundation 2 years ago, so now all proceeds from the money go to the foundation. And then Jimmy hooked me up with a record deal. I'm not even a professional drummer for a living anymore, and I have a record contract for 5 years, So yeah, maybe another one, and I would love to invite you to play on the next one, please.
Oh, yeah, anytime. God.
Thank you.
Did you just say what? Sure. Anything. I'm either 3 or I will require $5 million. It's up to you.
Hey, we just have to raise enough money, that's all. But yeah, so we're trying to get some money together for research that needs to be done. So that's the goal of Dream. And Jimmy, it's like, well, I don't mean, this is talking with you. This is a conversation. I really want it to be about you. But how it came about was 2 years ago almost, Jimmy called me, said, can you help my friend who has Parkinson's and he's a great guitar player? And then he told me his name is Jeff Richman. I'm like,
oh yeah,
I've been following Jeff since the early 90s. And
yeah,
Jeff's doing very well and he's playing beautifully. But we started doing video chats and training online. And then I had to teach in LA, a workshop in LA a year ago, February. So 6 months prior, I said, Jeff, be a guest. Come to my workshop. I don't want your money. Just show up. He says, well, we got to jam. I'm like, I haven't played drums in 5 years. I'm terrible. I don't care. There's a studio near my house. We'll jam. And then I said, well, if we're going to jam, I got to practice. Why don't we record something? And then he said, yeah, let's get Jimmy to do it. I said, well, let's do it for my foundation. And then here we are.
Oh, great. Yeah.
It's like, but it's a dream, not, there is pun intended on that, but yeah, it's a dream come true.
That's very inspirational, yeah. Consequence. But it's amazing work you do.
Trying to make something happen and bringing my old life of musician to my new life of what I do and merging them. So the songs were picked, almost every song was picked by a person with Parkinson's. in each song has some type of inspiring or positive message. So yeah, I love it, man. It's freaking awesome.
That's really something. Yeah.
CD number 2, Gary Husband.
Come on, man.
He'll be joining us.
Okay. Have you heard of NLP? Of course you have, right?
Oh, neuro-linguistic programming.
Exactly.
Oh, 100%. I love that stuff.
I found a great practitioner of it, and I was in serious trouble with flying.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was getting worse, and I was having to try to be as drunk as possible, but still be able to stand just to get on a plane.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I was so gone, it was unbelievable, and really risking a lot of working situations.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to get something done as a matter of emergency, and I think I saw him twice, and the rest of the time we did on Skype.
Mm-hmm.
And he cured me, man.
Mm-hmm.
I now get on a plane, and it's like, yeah, sure, I'll sit here next to a window, no problem. And I'm like, oh, quite high, aren't we? I'm unrecognizable. So I've never been able to quite come to terms with how successful that was.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I have been, I'd say the past 9 years, taking that seriously. For about 11 years before that, I liked the idea of it. I just wasn't ready to implement techniques or strategy. But the book that really changed it for me is written by one of the basically one of the founders of it is Richard Bandler. Richard Bandler wrote a book called Use Your Brain for a Change. Last I checked, it's out of print, but you can get anything if you look hard enough.
Yeah, sure.
But you have I forget the name of the couple who put out a bunch of books, and then you got Tony Robbins and these other people talk about it. And, a good practitioner, yeah, they can really make a difference in how you think and associate things with the past, present, future. Get rid of some fears.
Yeah. Well, there's been one other I wanted to work on. That's heights, because I'm not very good with heights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you can, I know that you can do it. It's amazing work, and I'm living proof of its success rate too. So.
I'm glad. I mean, that's good, because those kind of things take energy from you. They drain you, and if you're fearful of various situations. So, yeah. Well, let me ask you this before we close, because
okay.
I want to make sure this file saves correctly. It's not too large. A takeaway. Do you have a takeaway message you'd like to give to the viewers and listeners? A piece of advice.
Well, fragments of advice, and they usually come out in a different order, but the same every time. And really to go deep, listen outer but inner too. Listen to everybody else, decide what you want to take from teachers, throw away the other stuff. Listen and play in as many different musical situations as you can, because they're all beneficial. They all give something to your perception and application to lots of different music, and make you broad.
Yeah.
What else? Mean everything you play with heart. Become a good reader. It's good. It's not totally obsolete yet. I still get crazy charts put in front of me at my grand age, and I'm expected to read them. So do everything you can to try and put yourself in a place where you can be noticed for doing what you can already do very well, hopefully, by the point that you're considering this. If that makes sense. It's a lot of what we were talking about, creating a little bit, becoming a little more proactive in shaping your future, yourself. And really just play with your heart and be as amazing as you can. That's all.
No, I really, those are great words. I used to want to be like other people personally and in drumming, and it took. I'm a late bloomer, but better late than never. I realized that, once I got okay with who I am, it's actually okay to be me, and I encourage being myself to myself. I encourage everybody to be themselves, be an individual, because you are. There's one Gary Husband, there's one Carl Stern, there's one of each person out there. A lot easier said than done for some of us, but great advice. So,
I hope so, Carl. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, so for one more time, I just want to make sure we get everybody to your website, which is garyhusband.com. So I have a link to that, so they can just click and go.
Yeah.
I want to thank you again, my friend, for your time again. Very much.
Oh.
If you don't mind, if you could just hang with me for just 1 minute after I end the recording. So thank you. And thank you everybody for watching.
Thanks greatly, Carl. It means a lot that you've wanted to do this, and thank you.
Oh my God, what a pleasure. What an honor.
Pleasure's all mine, sir.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, everybody, for watching and for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, because I know I sure did. And I hope you have a great day. And it looks like